You're listening to The Jake Asman Show on the SportsMap Radio Network.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Jake Asman.
Bullock up top to Quickly for three. Bang! Emmanuel Quickly does it again. The Knicks up 10. 44 seconds remaining.
Mike Breen on MSG, the game-sealing three you just heard from Emmanuel Quickly as the Knicks beat the Hawks at Madison Square Garden 137-127 in overtime to win their 8th game in a row. Before we talk about the win and what the Knicks have done, let me tell you as a Knicks fan how nice it is to actually hear Mike Breen, our guy, our announcer, be able to have emphatic calls involving a Knicks player, a Knicks moment. You know, for years, we love Mike Breen. We love hearing him call the NBA playoffs, the NBA finals. But it gets a little old when it's always Steph Curry, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Damian Lillard. It's nice that it's the Knicks that are producing some great Mike Breen moments. So that's an aside to get things rolling here, talking about the Knicks. They are the feel-good story in the NBA this year. The best story in the league. Nobody saw this coming. Even if you're the most optimistic sports fan, you're the most optimistic Knicks fan, which is hard to be considering the history of this team the last 20 years. Nobody saw this coming. The Vegas over-under for the New York Knicks. You know what it was going into this year? 22.5. The Knicks now have 33 wins. They're 6 games over 500. You know, if the season were to end today, the Knicks would host a playoff series. I mean, at the beginning of all this, it was, compete for the playoffs. Maybe you can get into the play-in game, right? If you're in the top 10, you're in the play-in game, and then you have a chance to go to the playoffs. That'd be a good year for the Knicks. Forget the play-in game. Forget just trying to be, a 7th or an 8th seed now. Forget trying to even be, a 6th seed, so you avoid the play-in game. The Knicks have a legitimate chance to be the 4th seed in the NBA, in the Eastern Conference. Nobody saw that coming. This is the feel-good story in basketball this year. 8 wins in a row. It's the longest win streak for New York in 7 years. 6 games over 500. Tom Thibodeau was the coach of the year in basketball. Period. I'm not trying to discredit Quinn Snyder in Utah, Monty Williams in Phoenix. But those teams have far more talent than the Knicks. Those teams had way higher over-unders. The Knicks were at 22.5. And for the most part, the core of this team is the same team that the Knicks had last year under David Fizdale, who was a disaster as a head coach. In fact, I already made the comparison last night. David Fizdale was the Adam Gase of the NBA. That's how bad he was. Thibodeau comes in, instills a culture, instills accountability, and the Knicks go from being one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA to a top 3 team overnight. That's coaching. Julius Randle, in his 7th year in the league, has become an all-NBA player. He was an all-star, but forget the all-star, the status. Julius Randle is going to get MVP votes. He won't win. That's not the point. He's going to get MVP votes. And you can argue he's the MVP because, well, where would the Knicks be without him? It wouldn't be a top 4 seed in the East. That's coaching. That's development. That's holding guys accountable. That's Thibodeau. He's the coach of the year. Randall's the most improved player for sure. He'll get MVP votes, which is amazing to fathom. But he's the most improved player in the league. He's the MIP. I mean, this is just an unbelievable season we're watching. And I'll tell you what, it is not crazy to now envision the Knicks winning a playoff round. I'm not going to sit here and be like, they're a championship team. Watch out, Brooklyn. Watch out, Philly. I'm not an idiot. But that's not what this year's about. This team could win a playoff series, though. That's not crazy. The way they play defense, the way they've learned to close out these games, it's been amazing to see. I mean, at the beginning of the year, the Knicks' biggest issue was they'd be in these games and they couldn't finish. They couldn't close. They've learned how to do it. The pick and rolls at the end of the game, Randall setting things up, dishing to open guys, the improvement from the outside from three-point range for a guy like R.J. Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly coming in and being one of the steals of the draft, bringing in Derrick Rose in the middle of the year for nothing. I mean, this team just has gelled and they play so well together. I mentioned Emmanuel quickly. How about this? Tom Thibodeau declared today a blackout day and is going to revoke the Knicks from being allowed to go to the training facility. So everyone's forced to rest. Imagine that in today's NBA. The head coach has to tell the players, don't show up to practice. Enjoy the off day. We don't play again until Saturday. I mean, this is the Knicks we're talking about. It's one of the great stories that we've had in a long time in basketball because the NBA is better when the Knicks are better. And the Knicks have now essentially become what the Brooklyn Nets were before they ended up signing Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, where you had this young core in place that was capable of going to the playoffs, well coached, and you felt like there was a real foundation being built. That's the Knicks. The next time there is a disgruntled superstar that wants out, the next time there's a big free agent that's out there, they're considering the Knicks and they're signing with the Knicks because then the Garden now sells itself. I mean, I tweeted this last night at Jake Asman on Twitter. There's 2,000 fans that are allowed at MSG. Sounds like a playoff game in there. It sounds like there's, 20,000 fans there. Knicks fans really are the best. They have been beat up so many times over the last 20 years. And they keep coming back and supporting this team. And I try to explain this to people that are not from New York like I am. It's different when the Knicks are good in New York. Because you look at the New York sports fan, there's 2 baseball teams. There's 2 football teams. There's 3 hockey teams in the tri-state area. There's 1 basketball team. The Nets are not they're not relevant. They're not at the same level as the Knicks. And I don't mean to put down, the Nets and their fans, but they would tell you they're not a New York team, really. They haven't been in Brooklyn for that long. And it's just different. If the Knicks play the Nets in the playoffs, the Knicks are going to have up to 7 home games in that series. That's just how many more Knicks fans there are than Nets. When the Knicks are good, it's different because everyone in New York, for the most part, is a Knicks fan. It's like 95% Knicks fans. It's different. And this feels different than that Knicks team that had that one great year with Melo where they won 54 games in 2012, 2013. That team had a bunch of veterans. It wasn't sustainable. This is a Knicks team that has the young pieces in place that make you feel good about the future. And they're doing it right now without Mitchell Robinson, who's hurt. Alec Burks has missed the last 3 games. But this core of Randall, RJ Barrett, and Emmanuel Quickley, and the role players they have added, the Reggie Bullocks of the world, the Nerlens Noels of the world, it's a feel-good story. It's a great team to root for. They play hard every night. And sometimes you just show up and give effort. You can win a lot of games you're not supposed to. And that's been the Knicks this year. I mentioned Julius Randle. He's someone that's going to get MVP votes. He should win Most Improved Player. This was the Knicks' best player after the game last night when asked about what it means to now be the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference.
4th place sounds good. But like I said, we're not done yet. We have a long way to go. This is not about just getting 4th place or whatever it is. We're trying to build something here. We're trying to build a culture. We're trying to do things the right way. And we have a team that everybody believes in each other. So we feel like we can do anything. Anything's possible for us.
Anything's possible. I mean, it's not crazy now. It's not crazy. You're not getting ahead of yourself if you think the Knicks have a legit chance to win a playoff round. If they match up with the Hawks in the first round, and we'll see what happens with Trae Young's injury. Sorry to see that happen with the ankle in this game last night. If they play the Hawks in the first round, they've beaten the Hawks all 3 times this year. And they have been great games down to the wire. Home court, MSG, Knicks Hawks, round 1. Knicks could win that series. Heck, if they play the Celtics in round 1, why can't the Knicks win that game? The Celtics aren't a lethal offensive team. The Knicks play great defense. They're well coached. They'd have a chance. It's not crazy. I mean, you look at the standings right now, and it's like a blur waking up on Thursday, April 22nd, and seeing the Knicks 33-27 in the 4th spot in the East. It's like a dream. And then you look at what the Yankees are doing, and it's like these 2 teams have essentially swapped places this year. It's crazy. The Knicks are back. What did it cost? Apparently it cost the Yankees. Met fans, though, I think are fine with that trade. I think that's for sure. But how about the Knicks? Break up the Knicks 8 in a row. Who's beating this team right now? Nobody. 800-224-2004 is the number if you want to weigh in. If you're watching on the live stream, numbers at the bottom. Also could tweet me your thoughts at Jake Asman. That's JakeAsman. Plenty still to get into this morning here on the show. We are a week out from the NFL draft. A lot of new rumors. Of course, there's rumors this time of year, but a lot of stuff being thrown out there involving these quarterbacks. We'll talk about the latest with the NFL draft that's coming your way next right here on the Jake Asman Show.